we are on it. Good afternoon. This is Rob Bell. You're watching Getting the Record Straight. This is the Black Rock and Soul segment of our show. Everybody who's watching, please subscribe. Please share. Let people know what we're doing here, trying to bring you information and folks who are both in the activist community and in the music and arts community, folks who are really doing something and kind of working outside the box, as it were. As I said, subscribe, and more importantly, right now, stay safe. Keep those masks on, keep a distance, the social distancing thing going on, regardless of what you hear, till we know everything is cool. As I said, this is the Black Rock and Soul segment. I have a great guest, really wonderful guy, and really an important. He's practically an institution now, and we're going to get to him in a second. I hope you know that you can listen to my playlist, my YouTube playlist, every day at blackrocksoul.com. And in fact, me doing that and putting that music up is the guy who I'm going to introduce you to has really had a unwitting hand in that. He doesn't know it, but so much of what I put on my YouTube playlist comes from stuff I've heard via this gentleman. And before I introduce him, let's just say, take a second to acknowledge today is Malcolm X's birthday, and also Grace Jones. Who can forget Grace Jones? And but there's a lot going on today. There's supposed to be an event later that's commemorating the last poets, paying homage to the last poets, which should be really interesting, although I may not be able to make that. But anyway, without further ado, on the phone is J. Michael Harrison. J. Michael is the host of WRTI's show, The Bridge, which comes on Friday, I believe, at 10 o'clock, from 10 to 2. That's WRTI Temple University Station, 90.1 FM. J. Michael started The Bridge in 1996. He has since, as I said, since become an institution of sorts. He's won Philadelphia Magazine's Best Radio Program in 2002. Philadelphia City Paper called it the best on-air reminder that jazz didn't die in 1965. The Philadelphia Clef Club made him a stakeholder in 2016. In 2017, the Jazz Journalists Association named him a jazz hero. And he also gave me an opportunity some time ago. I don't even know if he remembers to talk about my book, right back there, The Myth of Rock and Roll, The Racial Politics of American Popular Music. So without further ado, Philadelphia's #1 jazz and all things cool impresario, J. Michael Harrison. How you doing this afternoon?
Rob, man, I'm here to see another great day, and I really appreciate you inviting me onto your podcast, man. Thank you for that.
No problem, man. It's really an honor, and just to kind of set it up a little bit more, what you've done and been doing for the past 20-something years, 24, 25 years, has just been so important. Like I said, it's influenced me. It's influenced, I'm sure, and impacted countless other folks, particularly artists who haven't been able to get a exposure, and people able to listen to them. And I think it's really been important on a number of levels, not the least of which is historical, because like I said, you're given exposure to people who really haven't been given an opportunity to listen. You've kept jazz alive almost single-handedly, I think. And maybe I'm overstating that a little bit, but
Maybe a
Let
little
me,
bit there, Rob.
huh? Let me shut up for a minute because
I don't want to start any trouble, man.
I read a little bit about your background and what got you to Temple Station. But why don't you expound on that and give us the real deal about how the bridge, how you got to starting the bridge. Oh, by the way, it's what is it? A bridge between bebop and hip hop, and what's the other part to that? I couldn't remember that to save my life.
So yeah, well that's it essentially. It's the bridge between bebop and hip hop. It's again, man. Thank you for the opportunity to hang out with you. I'm trying to remember how far back it was that you were actually on the show with me.
It was at least 12 years.
I knew it was a minute ago.
Yeah.
But it's great to see, the work that you're doing, and you use the word important. And for all of us that find the opportunity to shine a light on the talent, the really gifted artists that are in this region, for all of us that have that opportunity, I think it is important work. The bridge got started as kind of the sequel to the very first radio program that I was fortunate enough to present, and that show, and this is part of that catchphrase. That show is called "Is That Jazz?"
Mm-hmm.
So it's your bridge between bebop and hip hop,
Mm-hmm.
an eclectic mix of music and poetry presented from an "Is That Jazz?" perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of paying homage to that very first show that I was fortunate enough to produce at WPEB, which started in 1993.
Okay.
That show was titled "Is That Jazz?" after Gil Scott-Heron's "Is That Jazz?"
Mm-hmm.
So that was the kind of the foundation to what is the bridge today.
Mm-hmm.
I got involved with radio, I always tell folks, out of frustration. I thought coming up in Philadelphia in the late 60s and 70s, we were fortunate to have phenomenal radio programming, both on AM and FM, but specifically on FM, with DAS and with the Point of Jazz, the Freedom Sounds, the Black Experience in Music at WKDU, and a lot of the work that the University of Pennsylvania was providing at WXPM during that period as well. I look back on that, and we were extremely blessed to have such incredible opportunities to hear music that you didn't necessarily, hear on the commercial side of things. So as things started to change in radio, and it leaned a little bit more towards commercial, and even on the public radio side, some of that adventure seemed to dissipate. I knew there were people out there that were looking for the music that I was looking for, because I would run into them at concerts.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of, the thought process was, well, maybe there's an opportunity out there for me to try to fill that void.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, that opportunity developed, the courage kind of developed because of my cousin and my brother, who both are musicians. Many in the Philadelphia area for sure are familiar with drummer Harry Butch Reed, and he happens to be my cousin. So he and my brother, all of the music that they were into, that inspired me, and how free thinking they were about music. And I remember specifically saying to Butch, I'm thinking about starting a radio show, and he thoroughly endorsed me pursuing that. And I reached out to a very small WPEB, Sister Bay, and
was that at 40th Street then?
That was at 40th Yes, right at 40th and Market,
Market, yeah.
and they opened up the door for me, and as
Mhm.
they say, the rest is kind of history.
Mhm. Um, when you talk about hip hop and bebop and this intersection, well, what explain that a little more. Get into it a little more in terms of because there is a history there, and it's a legacy that's ongoing, and you've been certainly one to promote it and hype it and talk about it. So talk about it now a little more.
Sure.
Okay, the synergy
Well, I
there.
mean, if you really look at the legacy of jazz and the progression in various eras, and periods, you see that there's certain uh, consistency, certain components,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's stylish dress, the swag that you saw, the vernacular, the dialogue, words that you might associate with the genre, they're all there. And
Mm-hmm.
similarly, when you look at hip hop culture and
Mm-hmm.
rap music, there's a similar progression. Again, there's the style of dress. There's again the words, being at the forefront, cutting edge
Mm-hmm.
of style. All of that comes along with hip hop culture and rap music, and all of that, has been a significant part of jazz. So as rap music kind of really started taking off, late '70s, moving into the '80s and what have you,
Mm-hmm.
you started to see uh, those connections between jazz musicians and rap artists, DJ culture, hip hop culture. You start to see those connections crystallizing, and
Mm-hmm.
ultimately you get folks like Guru and Public Enemy,
Mm-hmm.
taking jazz samples and bringing it in, and even before that, I mean, some of the funky stuff that James Brown was bringing.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen to that music and those musicians that were with JB, obviously there's a jazz connection as well.
Sure.
So when you look at what's happening in hip hop, culture, what's happening with jazz musicians, that mid '80s, late '80s, leading into the '90s, you start getting collaborations.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Branford Marcellus, has Buckshot LaFunk.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Coleman and Five Elements are
Mm-hmm.
utilizing rappers like Black Thought and
Mm-hmm.
rappers out of DC.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Osby, is doing
I got
similar things.
I got him on the list right now.
Gary Thomas
Yeah.
is also bringing that in, and there's a wide range.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember even before I got to RTI, Jamaluddin Takuma giving me a piece of his that had a rapper I believe was from Japan on it. I don't think it was ever released, but there was that going on. There was a lot of that experimenting going on with the jazz genre and hip hop culture and rap, rappers and DJs as well. I remember Vernon Reed with Mask. Everybody knows his ensemble Living Color, but he had a project Mask that the first iteration of that had two DJs in it, and later on DJ Logic became the primary DJ. But I also remember folks like Ori Kane experimenting with DJs. And, so there was just a lot of that intermingling going on.
Yeah. Hey, let me hold you. Pause for 1 second, and we're going to come back with another segment. Okay.
Most definitely.
All right.